Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm Joshua and this is Rooftop. In today's workshop, we're going to be looking at a Pachedi bookmark that we'll be doing. Now, I have done a workshop previously on Pachedi paintings. So if you'd like to have a look at that, you can go to our channel and see everything there. It is there in the live section. So over there I brief you about, the history of this art style and, what they paint on, because this one is done on mostly on cloth. So if you're interested in, getting to know more about this art style, you can have a look at that video. In today's workshop, we will be doing a very simple painting, and we'll try to encapture the art style in a bookmark. So let's start and see how we can go about it. So over here we have our, which hand is it? This side, on my right side, on your left side, I have the reference down there, and I have a cup of tea also with me. So those of you who are having breakfast, welcome. So before we start, let's take a sip of our tea and just enjoy this process. That's good. Now let's start. So I will start by taking, now I'm using a cutting mat here so that it doesn't blend in with the background like that. Let me see. Okay, there you go. Now I'll take my masking tape, or it's even called paper tape, and this is used very commonly for paintings. So I will take around 2 this size. Okay, and I will tape, say, about half a centimeter. Is that too high? No, that's good enough. Half a centimeter there. Okay, this isn't straight, so I'll just straighten this up first. Yeah, like that. And then I will tape the bottom also. It doesn't have to be precisely, half a centimeter. It can be around that range, but we'll try to keep all the borders as equal as possible. I will take my tape again and I will do this side. Now this tape is a little translucent, meaning you can see through it. So we can use that to our advantage to border this down. Just like that. Okay, that's a little too big. I don't need it that long also. I'll put this down, put this there. I'll tape the paper first and then I'll tape the rest to the cutting board. Okay, now I'll just make sure this is okay. All right. 1 second. Okay, so now we can begin. So there are 2 ways as to how we can go about this painting. We can either start with the drawing, or we can first give it a very solid color, and then we can move on to the drawing part. So I think for this one I will be doing the background first. I will let it dry, and then over that I will start the painting. So I have my palette here, and I will just take a simple red color. I'll take this red. Hold on. Okay, sorry about that, guys. So I will take my red, and I'm using acrylic paints for this. So I have a cup of water here, or a glass of water to mix my brush in. I will take a flat brush and I will put my red color in this. I think about that much should suffice. Okay, and always remember that once you're done using your paint, to close it. Otherwise your paint will dry out and it will simply get wasted for no reason. Okay, but now in this, I feel like this color is a little too bright. So I will take some brown that I have here. I'm using burnt sienna. I will put a little bit to the side here, just a drop. Now I will take this brown and I will mix it in this red. So what this will do is it will basically dull the red a bit, or in art terms we would say neutralize the color. It will make it a little dull. It won't make it very, very vibrant. We don't want it to be very vibrant right now. So if you feel that you need to add a little more, you can always go ahead and just remove little by little and keep adding to it until you get the right, what do you say, the right vibrancy or the right hue. Okay, now I will take a little bit of water and just add it to this, so that when I start painting, it will, it will flow very smoothly. So let's see. Yeah, like that. And we'll try to do it in one direction. Okay, so over here I didn't think the glue didn't stick properly or the paint didn't stick properly, so I will just press this tape down. Now there might be a little bit of leakage on the left side, but that is okay. As long as we are, quick to correct it, should be fine. So we'll make sure that the color that we are adding is relatively flat. So there shouldn't be any patches to this, which is why I said we'll be painting in a downward direction so that we get a very flat color. Downward upwards, basically vertical. And we'll use long strokes. Do the same thing upwards, so that if there's any extra paint at the bottom, it will cover it up like this. Alright? And now comes the important part, is when the paint is drying, we don't want to touch it. What we would want to do is take a cup of tea and just wait for it to dry. So the reason why we need to wait is because we do not want, this paint to mix with the color that we're going to add towards it. So take your tea and have a sip. It's pretty, so we've had a workshop pretty, early today. We're trying to do some experiments. So what do you guys think about this timing? Is it better than the 12:31 or would you prefer that? Let me know in the comments. So now, while this is drying, okay. So now while this one is drying, we can have a look and see whether the paint is, we'll just gently touch and see whether the paint is still wet. So there are certain areas it is still wet, so we can still wait for it to dry, because it depends on the type of paper that you use. Some paper are highly absorbent, some have a very glossy surface to it, which can then, make it take a little more time than usual to dry out. So let's have a look. Okay. So while it's drying, let me give you a brief on what Matani Pachedi is. So this style, it comes from the state of Gujarat, or the nomadic Waghari community. And this is usually a textile art, it's not done on paper. And Matani Pachedi, it translates to behind the mother goddess in Gujarati. So these paintings, they are done on cloth panels that serve as a temple backdrop, or for shrines for the worship of the Hindu goddesses. And this art form also, it combines not just painting, but it has block printing as well. And they use natural cotton fabric to depict the scenes, and they have a lot of you could say deities in it. But mostly it has one of the goddesses, or some goddesses like Durga or Kali. So I think this has dried. So I just, you see how strong this red is? That's making my hand also look a lot more red. And this is also a very, I would say, important lesson when it comes to painting, is that, now say for example, this palette here, or let me take something else. Say this tissue. So now this tissue, if I bring it closer, you can see that it is white in color. But when it is surrounded by different environments with different colors, so if I bring it closer to the camera, you can see it is white. But the second I bring it lower and lower, we can see that it is turning red in color. Why is that? Isn't this, just white in color? There's no paint on it, there's nothing. And even if there is paint, that would be green in color, which is this one dot over here. And yet we see it turned red in color. So that is because, now here's a little bit of physics when it comes to color theory, you could say, or when it comes to painting. We need to realize that light, it bounces off of different surfaces. So due to that, now this red color over here, it's much stronger and it's much brighter than this dark green color here. So that would result in the light bouncing off of this red color onto the walls and eventually onto this piece of tissue. Excuse me. Yeah. So onto this piece of tissue. So whenever we create paintings, right, like especially with a large variety of colors in the background, whatever color is there in our surrounding, we will add a little bit of that color onto the main subject that you paint. Now if you were painting me, I have some orange light there, I have a white light, I have the colors of the walls. Now the colors of the walls also, they are naturally white, but because of the colors of the light that is there, it changes color to a bit of a lighter orange, you could say. And in that orange, not only is reflecting onto me, it is reflecting onto this tissue, onto this cutting mat, and onto this red or this paper as well, which will then change the color. Now on camera, this green is looking a little bit darker than what I see it as it is. That is because if you take orange and you add it into green, if you take green and you add it into orange, the orange would start darkening up, and vice versa. So if you take orange and add it into green, the green would start, slightly darkening in the sense that it won't become like black, but it will become a little more dull. So the vibrancy will come off. So that way, this is just a tip, of course. It might go over your head. Maybe some of you might understand. Either ways, it's still good to be aware of it. And maybe if you all are interested, I could have a workshop on how we can use color theory and how light reflects off of different objects and so on and so forth. So you can let me know if you're interested, and we can have a workshop on that. But now let's continue with this painting. Okay, I'll keep this tissue here. I don't really need it right now. Have a sip of my tea, and then we can start painting. I'll just clean my brush. So now for this, I won't be using a very thick brush. I'll be using a thin brush here. Hold on. We'll be using a brush. Oh, that's bright. Yeah, like this thin. So it's going to be a super thin brush. So now if you want, you can start off by maybe just drawing onto this. But now I will be drawing on this, but it might not be very visible to you because of how strong this red is looking. But it's okay. I'll just do this drawing very quickly. I'll just do like a very rough drawing, so I just know where the elements or this motif needs to be placed at. And from here, I will go upwards towards the center of this paper. Then I can just start bringing it down like that. Same thing here, thin, and then it will start widening. Now I know you can't see, but let me just do a very rough sketch over here. So I think say about this much. It will come out like this. It will start dipping in from around the side. So I'm just using this as a reference for when almost put my pencil in the water. Okay. So now I will start with the painting. Now for the tree that is there, I will add a bit of white color. So let me just rotate this. I will use this one here. I'll put a little bit of white. And I already have a bit of, I'll just hide this reference for now. Okay, so I already have a little bit of brown color here. So I will take this brown, just a little bit. You can barely even see it. And I will mix it in this white. So for the mixing, I won't use this brush, the small one. I'll use a slightly bigger one so that it's a lot easier to mix. Maybe I'll take a little bit more brown. Oh, sorry, it went out of the screen. Maybe just a little bit darker. Just a tiny bit. I'll add some water to this so that it is a lot more easier to spread it when I paint. Or it will flow a lot more easily. That seems like a better term. Yeah, that should be good. Now I will take my brush. Let's mix it properly in this. Now I can start with the painting. I have a lot of paint on my brush, so I will start with the much thicker areas. That over there, over here. There you go, like that. That looks good. I'll do the same for this side. Like this. And when it comes to the edges, right, we'll try to do it in one flow. Just like that. And as I go towards the top, I will start thinning it out. Like this, and as you come lower, I'll start putting more and more pressure onto the brush so that I can get a nice variation in this. There you go. That looks great. Okay. Now, you can start with this area here. So for this part is pretty thin, so I'll first just do the outlines for this. Sorry if you can hear the background. So if you see these lines, they're so thin that the camera is having a little difficulty in capturing it. So what I can do is I can zoom in a little bit. That way what I'm doing will be, a lot more clear to you. Like that. Okay, and I will put this paint over here so that you can see. Do you want the reference back, or do you just want to see me paint? Because then this area here would get covered. So if you want the reference back, just let me know and I will add it. So this part is very thin. Oh, it's very small. These, they curve a little bit upwards also. I think that's a little too close. We'll try to keep some distance between them. Over here as well. So you can see how I am utilizing the brush. So now over here, if we feel that we can thicken or increase the length of this area. You see this, I feel like I can make it a little bigger. Yeah, that should be good enough. Now I'll do the same for this side also. Just like that. So if you want to practice, like different pressure with the brush, I would suggest taking a thin paintbrush and trying to draw as thin of a line as you can, and then as thick of a line as you can. And then what you can do is you can go from, say, thin to thick, like that, and then to thin, and then to thick, and then to thin, like that. Now don't worry, I painted on the tape, so it's not going to affect the painting. But just as a reference, I'm showing it to you. I'll just added a little bit of water. Oh, I hope it's not too much. Okay, seems to be good enough. So what you can do is you can use your pinky finger as a support, either this way or maybe like this also. Now I'm just pulling my hand down so you can see. But otherwise you can use this as a support so that your entire hand doesn't go down like that. Sometimes what artists do is they, like, if they are painting on, say, a large sized canvas, they will have a stick in which they would put the stick over here like this. So imagine this is the canvas. They'll put the stick here and then they will put their hand over it as a support, so that the painting that they do Second. Yeah, so that the hand doesn't, disturb the painting. Paintbrush size. So this one is a custom made paintbrush, but if you want a paintbrush size, I think there should be a zero size as well. A zero or one size. So you can take a round brush. So you can use a brush like this also. And sometimes you'll get a very thin but a very long bristle for the brush. So you can just have a look and take the thinnest size you can. Because for me personally, right, I never look at the numbers on the brush. I see whether the size is good for me and whether it's either long enough and the bristles are good. So I look at all of that, and then based on my preference, I get it accordingly. So what I would suggest is, right now I'm using a size 1, you could say, for a round brush. Round brush is basically any thin brush like this. And then we have, let me just remove the other one. And we have another brush like this, which is a flat brush. And then we have a wider one, which is spread like that. And that is a fan brush. So each brush has its own, you could say, traits to it. So if you want to get a brush for yourself, see what size, maybe if you already have brushes, see what size you're missing, or see what type of maybe lines or brush strokes that you're trying to do, and get a brush accordingly. Because the numbers and stuff, I think it would only be good if you're trying to tell someone to buy a brush for you who has no knowledge about it. So you can tell them, oh, I want a round brush, maybe size 2 or size 3 or size 10 also. But if you are personally going and buying, I would suggest you just looking at what you do not have and what you're trying to achieve with the painting. And accordingly, you take which brush is suitable for you. Because right now, for this painting, since it is a small one, I'm using a thinner brush. But if this painting, instead of this size, it was much bigger, hold on. Yeah, if it was much bigger, maybe say like A4 size or something, then I would use a much bigger brush, like this one. If you compare it to this, you can just see how much bigger this is. It's like 2 or 3 times bigger than this one. So it just depends on what you need. I hope that answered your question. If you're still confused, you can let me know. So did that answer your question or did that confuse you? Oh, okay, great. If you have any other questions, maybe related to painting or maybe your own personal work where you feel confused also, you can ask me and I'll try to answer as much as I can. So now over here for the leaves, I will just draw very thin lines like this. Very thin and very short also. So this I will add everywhere here. Now these thin brushes, right, they might not look like much, but they but they hold a lot of paint. So even if by mistake you use a little too much force, you'll just have a big blob in front of all those lines that you created. think maybe we can make it a little bigger and spread it out also a little bit. Same thing this side. So these Matani Pachedi paintings, they are very detailed. Like nowadays we have minimalism, but back then the amount of details, or in this style, the amount of details it is so much that I even had a little difficulty, trying to find the right painting to do this workshop with. Otherwise, I will not finish it in one day. It would take me at least maybe 2 to 3 days. But that's the beauty about this painting. There's so much to it that you have nothing but appreciation. Now see, over here I made the lines a little too close, so it's a bit congested. Then from this side I started, widening the lines a little bit because I realized how congested it was, getting. So even in paintings, there's something known as breathing space, which is basically you keep enough distance between certain elements so that it doesn't look too congested, and there is, you could say, like an area for it to breathe. Now if you look at this camera view, you can see it is very congested. That is because I had to zoom in a little bit. Sorry, a little too much. I had to zoom in so that you can see. But now if I zoom out like that, we can see that okay, there is a lot more room now. Visually it looks a little bit better because this part is still consuming a lot of space, but you can see that okay, I can see this image here, there is some room here, okay, there's nothing cluttering around. But now when I remove this one also, one second, like that, now it looks a little better. There is room, there's nothing disturbing this painting. We have a little bit of design here, but it's not so much that it will disturb this painting. But when I add this here, I will add this here, I will add this here, like this, now it looks a lot cluttered up. There is no space for this painting to breathe, or this painting to sit and relax. So even when we start painting like this, right, we need to think about all of that. I'll just zoom in a little bit. I think this much should be fine. Yeah. So there are a lot of aspects to painting that that we use in our day-to-day life, that we incorporate in paintings. Because sometimes you might see like super realistic or very visually stunning painting, but when you see how many things are there around it, it can ruin the painting no matter how good it is. So that's where composition comes in. So let me use this example in music. Now if you listen to like say pop music or something along those lines, or even let's say a little bit of techno. So techno has a lot of bass to it, a lot of beats, a lot of beat drops also, where it just goes silent and then boom, the beat drops, right? So even for that, if you see before the beat drop, you'll have a build up to it, and then there is, I think, say around 2 to 3 seconds of silence for the crowd to focus onto, the DJ or to the music, and then the beat drops. So this logic is not only used in painting, but any sort of art form. So that breathing space is always necessary. I'm sure this might be, new for some of you who are maybe new to painting, or, do it as a hobby, but that is okay. This is something I got to learn not by myself, but, through academic training. But if you found that interesting, I'm glad, I could open up a new part of art to you all. I have a lot more points if you want to hear. You can let me know whether you would like me to continue or you would want me to stop yapping. So I can add this here. You can keep drawing the leaves like that. Would you like me to, tell you some more things about art like this, or do you find it a little boring or a little too much? If it's either of it, you can let me know whether you want me to, continue telling you about, more stuff, or even if it's a little too much, because it's still okay. It's sure it's interesting. Okay, that's great. Okay, so let's see what else can I add to it. Earlier I was in the flow. I did not stop talking. This kept coming out before I could even, process it. So what else is there in art? So one thing we could say is that color has a lot of psychology behind it. I'm sure most of you must have heard this. Color psychology, or art therapy. And one of the most basic example is the color red that I'm using right now. Now this red color, it's a lot more enhanced on camera. It's not so bright as you are seeing it on screen. It's much darker. But if you go to see the color red, it can indicate a lot of things. Some good, some bad, and some maybe something dangerous. So if we see the color red, where do we see it being used? On road signs, on the signals, but also when it comes to love. So it's like a double-edged sword when it comes to red. You can either show, either danger or like a warning, or like a heads up also, like be careful, something is about to happen, or maybe something is ahead. Or it can even be shown as an expression of oneself. But it all depends on how you use it. Now this is, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this. So this is also used in marketing also. Like you may not realize it. But say for example, a product. Now let's say bread. Now we've seen a lot of packaging, blue color, brown color, green color, or maybe just a subtle hint of green. But each color has an intention, and each of those intention is to create a thought process in your head. Now, say if you go to buy bread, for example, sliced bread specifically, not pav, because that you just get in a plastic bag wrapped in newspaper. So that is entirely based on your decision. But the whole point of, yeah, we're talking about bread, right? So if you see a blue color packaging, it will create sort of a trust between you and the brand. It will make you think that, like, you may not realize it, but subconsciously it makes you think that, oh, okay, this one seems nice, this one seems good, let me buy this. That is because the blue color, it creates this trust, it creates this calmness when you see like a light or a very soft blue color or a pastel color, which then makes you want to get that certain product. So when you see blue color, you'll think, what, I've never seen this one, let me get it, it looks a little nice, it looks a little appealing. And then we have brown bread, which the entire packaging is in dark brown, light brown, and some transparency, so that you can see the color of the bread, which is brown. But say if it was entirely brown in color and you couldn't see the bread below it, you would immediately think that, oh, okay, since I see brown and I see that it is a product of bread, it is brown bread. And the type of brown also that they use is to show that, so when we think of brown, before I get to my conclusion, when we think of brown, we think about earth, we think about mud, we think about nature, right? So keep in mind nature. So when we see bread with the color brown in it, we think of it immediately as they are using natural products, that is no additives in it, which will then make the color convince us that this product has a lot of natural ingredients in it, even if it may or may not have it. And the same thing with green. So while you see this brown bread, you will see maybe a small section of green on it, maybe with a leaf or something, which will then convince you even more that this is using natural products, because brown and green now makes a tree. And when you think of tree, you think nature. So it's a combination of different, you could say, psychological methods using color to convince you to get certain things. So that is one way how color can be used. And then even when it comes to painting, say if I want to show, 1 second, yeah, if I want to show maybe sorrow, instead of, if I use yellow, it wouldn't make sense, because yellow, you would refer it to something like summer or a flower, which brings you joy. So you wouldn't really use yellow. If I were to try to create sorrow, I would think of something like blue maybe, but not a bright blue, a little dull or a little grayish blue. Now why is that? If you have seen any Disney movie, say like the movie Up, the old man with the balloons in the house that goes floating, and they show his past, it is in a very neutral bluish color. So if you look at grays and blacks, we have warm blacks and we have cool blacks. So warm blacks would be like a brownish black. So when you start to add white into black, it will give you a very brownish gray. And, and then if you add white into a cool black, it would give you a very bluish gray. So depending on what type is used, we have those two variations. Now coming back to maybe sorrow, if in the movie it shows his sad past with his wife, the happy moments, and then until she passes away. But if you look at the color that they don't use it in realistic colors. They use a little bit of blue, a little bit of gray, which will then immediately make you think that, oh, it's in the past, it's nostalgia. When you think of nostalgia, we did not have colored cameras back then. It was a lot of gray, it was a lot of brown, a lot of sepia color. But instead of brown, they used blue, because blue gives a sense of calmness, a sense of uh, you know reminiscence, you could say. So that way, color psychology is applied to everything. Maybe if you're going on a date, you might wear a red dress, or maybe a red t-shirt, so on and so forth. That is to create that attractiveness with the person. Maybe you're going on a date, it could be a partner, your husband, or maybe a girlfriend to be also. So there is a lot of color psychology involved in everything. My mouth has gone dry. I need to drink some water. But what do you think about it? Now, there are a lot of examples, but there are infinite number of examples. Lovely, thank you. But did you find anything new, or maybe it opened up like a new perspective on thinking the relations with colors? Of course, you can simply use colors to just visually appeal to the visuals, or to the person, or to the viewer. But besides that, there are a lot more use cases of colors also, which again, with practice, it comes in hand. I think this can be achieved with any medium, the painting. Yeah, you can use any medium that you want, but the approach to this painting would be different. It wouldn't be the way I'm doing this, because if I'm using watercolor, I cannot start with a full red background and then paint over it like this. I would need to leave this space for the lighter color and then paint it. Yeah, so color is also one of the things that is used in art. One of the psychological things that colors used for. And then even when it comes to creating like conceptual paintings, what we do is we look into maybe philosophy, as in, I'm not talking about books, but it could be your own philosophy, the way you think, the way you feel with certain things, and how you can put it down in paper. Like, there are certain things like emotions which are very abstract, but if I tell you to draw happiness, there is no one true uh, what's the term, figure or picture of happiness. You would need to use a metaphor on it. Now, metaphors are used in like poetry, writing, and speech, but it can even be used in painting also. So one example of that would be, so this is an example I give to whichever student I've had. If okay, so before I give you an answer, I want to see some of your answers. If I were to ask you to describe say loneliness, what is the most simplistic, easiest, and very clear way of expressing loneliness? How would you do it on paper? You can take your time and think about it and let me know in the comments. Now, there's no right or wrong answer, there are just different perspectives. Everything does not, revolve around right or wrong or good and bad. It is just, sometimes things are just as they are. A person sitting single on the seashore. Okay, that is a very good example. Now try to simplify it even more. Think about it in a slightly abstract way. Now, this was a good example. It wasn't, there is no right example or wrong example. This one was a good example. So, if I were to ask you to simplify it even more, how would you do it? Start by not thinking about, very literal things. Try thinking about very abstract stuff. You can use color, you can use shapes, you can use forms. So try to, think a bit deeper. How else could you show loneliness? You can take your time, there's no hurry. Hmm? And this is for everyone else that is, watching also. How would you describe loneliness without being very literal about it? It can be a little bit metaphoric also. So I'll give you some basic examples, but I will still be a bit literal about it. So you could say maybe a single tree in a desert, or maybe a broken car in a parking lot full of fixed cars. It's a very, very basic, very little examples, but I'm asking for something a little bit more abstract. Now, when I first, started learning about all of this, and I had to, come up with such abstract uh, ways of expressing stuff, I used to get headaches. My head used to hurt. So, if your head is hurting while trying to come up with such examples, it's a good sign. So, do you want me to give you my answer? Or do you want to try, one more time and give me an answer of your own? Okay. So this is what I mean by abstract. So I have a piece of paper here. Now let's forget about this one. Hold on. I'll just move this to the side. So I have a piece of paper here, and I want to show loneliness, but I do not want it to be very literal. I do not want to, use a building, a house, or maybe a car, or maybe a tree. We have light colors depict calm, silence, loneliness. Yeah, it can. And it can also depict, it can also depict horror, it can also depict chaos, it can also depict, a calamity. It just depends on how you use it. One thing can mean a lot of different things, and a lot of different things can mean one thing. So if I want to visually, now like you said, light colors can depict calm, silence, loneliness. That is true, but how would you visualize it on paper? So the simplest example I can give you, and again, like I said, we're thinking very abstract, very minimal, and in a very simplistic way. So I have this paper here. What I can do is there. This is how I would depict loneliness. Simple, to the point, very abstract. Now I have this paper. This paper could be my life and everything I've been through. And it is so bright I cannot see anything around me anymore. And I am here in the center, all by myself, feeling gloomy, feeling lonely, where there's no one else that can relate to me. So I am just this little dot in this piece of paper that I call my life. And I am all by myself. And the very fact that I used a dark color is to show how gloomy or how lonely I feel, because there is no other place in this paper that I call my life where I can see the same color around me. So there is no one to relate to also. So you see, that's what I mean by using metaphors and abstract. Now this dot is literally just a dot, but with this entire explanation, I gave it so much meaning, so much depth, and I gave it even a personality of itself. So that way we can, whether it is poetry, whether it is art, we can simplify such things and, visually recreate them. I hope that was a good example, because my students, they were very mind blown, looking at this. But yeah, speaking of which, the workshop, entirely forgot about it. So what do you think about that answer? You can let me know. I know you must be thinking, oh, that is very simple, I've barely done anything. But that's what makes art art. It is the ability of thinking of such things, because sometimes you'll see like a very famous painting and you will think, oh, even I can do that. Maybe someone who doesn't have any knowledge in art looks at it like, oh, what is that? It's so easy, it's so simple, even I could do that. And even an expert artist who is a super realistic painter can also be like, even I can do that. But why is it that one got famous? It is because of the concept behind it, the colors used, and the capability of putting it down on paper. Anyone can do it, but it is just that one person that came up with it. So it's more like a race. I mean, in the art industry at least, it is more of a race who can come up with the most unique thing in their own unique way. Coming to a workshop. Did I tell you we were doing a workshop on a bookmark? Yeah. So this is our Pachedi painting. So we started off with a simple paper which we then stuck down. We painted it red entirely because we're using acrylics. And then we painted over it, since we're going from dark to light. And we are painting over it. So we started with the background color, and then we did the tree. So now what we can do is we can start by removing this tape. And while I remove this tape, you can let me know on your thoughts on what I said. You don't have to agree with it. These are all different perspectives, different opinions. There is no right or there is no wrong. Some might even disagree with my example, which is entirely natural. Because if we don't question each other, we don't grow. And if we just keep nodding our head and say yes, 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 we are all going to be stagnant. Like I said over here, I told you there will be some bleed because the tape had come off. So let me know what you think about the example, and in the meanwhile I will remove this tape that is there. So Ekta, if you're still there, let me know what you thought about what I said. Did it open maybe a new perspective, or it made you think about something new, or maybe you don't think that, you would think the same way. Again, there is no right, there is no wrong. It's just different perspectives and different depictions of how we see things. Opens a new perspective. Okay, I'm glad. So there you go. This is let me open up the reference also here. Yeah. Now again, as compared to the reference, let me make this a little bit more goofy. Yeah, I'll keep myself here. As compared to the reference here, this painting is a little bit, narrower and longer, so it will look a little bit different on camera, but here we can see a little bit clearly as to how we have done it. So if you enjoyed this workshop where I recreated this painting onto this side, you can drop, a like or a share, or you can just share it with, someone else also. So thank you for joining me on this workshop, and I hope the little chatting that I did, opened up a new perspective to you also while learning how to do this bookmark. And we will be having another workshop again in the afternoon at around 3:30. So we have brought it back by a couple of hours. But I hope to see you all there again. And if you'd like me to keep yapping about whatever I've been yapping so far, let me know in the comments and I will continue doing so. May I know your name? So my name is Joshua, and it has been lovely meeting you and lovely meeting you all. So I have, again, like I said, another workshop at 3:30, and we also have a WhatsApp group where I interact with the audience and I share the reference image for this workshop. Sorry, I went blank. Yeah. So we share the references also in our WhatsApp group, and we have a lot of interactive sessions like not quotes, but I'll give you a topic and you have to make a painting on it, and so on and so forth. And we have little competitions also sometimes where the winner will get a shout out onto our YouTube live, and I will display their works and give my thoughts and opinions on it. So if you're interested in that, or maybe just want more art related content, you can subscribe to us on YouTube, or you can also have a look at our website and our app called Rooftop app. So thank you so much for joining me, and it's been nice meeting you all, and I will see you again in the afternoon. Thank you.